Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Thank you for stopping by. Today I want to talk about something that has been affecting the Republican Party and something that needs to happen before they can move forward. The MAGA movement basically it's not going to run much longer. The writing is on the wall that it's not going to last much longer. And the Republican Party has to take back its identity again and maybe create a new identity. Two events have happened since 2016, in the election in 2016, the presidential primaries for the Republican Party, and that is Jeb Bush ran against Donald Trump. Jeb Bush, the brother of the former president, and his father was the president of the United States, and it was a legacy kind of thing. And he had been the governor of Florida, a very populated state. His wife is Hispanic, so he speaks fluent Spanish, and he and his family basically could, like Barack Obama could bring in the black people, he could bring in the Hispanic people pretty easily because of his relationships with that group of people. The Republican Party, tried and true, all the way back to when his grandfather was in office. So they had this very strong foundation to work with. They know many people, just like when George W. Bush became president. But what they didn't address before Jeb Bush ran was that the Iraq War left a tarnish, you could say, a problem there that hadn't been addressed yet by Jeb. So many people in the Republican Party believe that the Iraq War, the preemptive strike on Iraq, was justified. But in fact, it was a failed policy. People looked at Jeb and said, "We don't want that anymore in our politics. We don't want another war. The Iraq War was bad enough. We had a past that included something that hadn't been resolved yet. The legality of the Iraq War hadn't been resolved yet." Well, Liz Cheney, her father was vice president under George W. Bush. Vice President Cheney, that combination between these two people who basically are standing up, and one from, let's say, each end of the MAGA movement. The beginning of it was when Donald Trump took office in 2016, and then when he's running again into 2020, and then the January 6th issues, insurgency. So what is happening now is that the Iraq War is actually impinging, you could say, on U.S. politics now. And it has been for a long time. There's the ripples of effects that have gone out that mankind hasn't really connected to what happened with the Iraq War. It's just happening. You could probably take all of the events that have occurred around the world, and it's affecting every person on the planet now. It's affecting the economy. It's infecting the health issues. It's infecting many parts of the society in the world. I could say that it's the MAGA movement that came about as the Iraq War happened. The movement, the world peace movement, has started, and there's been this attempt to stop it from happening. Well, the people who are trying to stop it are now facing problems with not being able to, let's say, the idea that they are saying, we don't want to deal with this, just let the Iraq War, we're out of it, it's over, just let it fade into the past. It's not fading into the past, it's affecting you could say the family members of the people who were there, who were responsible for that failed policy. in a way, this is what's happening with all of our government proposals, is that U.S. failed policies, because we have been the main superpower for a long time. Basically, our failed policies have left just chaos all over the world. And we go along thinking, well, we're creating a democracy, we're democratizing the world, and we're doing a great job, and we're in there helping people when they need help and such. But basically, that's not necessarily policy that actually addresses the root cause of the problems. If our immigration policies about building a wall between us and Mexico to keep out all of the immigrants that are coming, the people who are begging for asylum, wouldn't it be better to go down and address the problem that's down in Central America that's forcing people to leave? If the United States wants to solve all these problems, the problem-solving tool is the plan for the international government, because it addresses all of these issues, and so that we can go on to 1,000 years of peace instead of 1,000 years of forever wars and civil wars and failed policies that are tearing apart the planet, and the ripples of effects that have gone out. So I've brought up the idea of the light source invention, where it's like a gyroscope that goes around and around, and it's the principles around it, and as it goes around it, and once it goes around 3 times, then it gets more and more off balance, you could say, like a top, like a gyroscope. And the 3rd time around is when it starts out with a oppression and the small effects, and then the ripples get bigger, and then the ripples get bigger, like not paying attention to the idea of a leaky faucet that eventually turns into a deluge. You have to address the root cause of the problem. You don't go buy a new refrigerator if you have a leaky faucet. It doesn't solve the root cause of the problem. It might make you feel better for 5 minutes or something or whatever, but it doesn't solve the root cause of the problem. You have to address that. So both Jeb Bush was facing in the Republican Party primary in 2016, was facing Trump. And wouldn't it have been logical for somebody with all that experience and all that history to be able to, if their family had been doing a really good job, stepping in and carrying on the family legacy would have made sense to a lot of people. We know what we're going to get. We can carry this idea on, but George W. Bush left the office with an economic crisis and with a Iraq war crisis, and basically that needs to be addressed. Dick Cheney, actually, you would think that his presence in Wyoming would have it allowed his daughter to have 73%. Oh, she's functioning on her own too. I'm not saying that she didn't play any part in it, but that family legacy left her with the 73% of the vote 2 years ago, and now this time she couldn't beat the MAGA idea. So Dick Cheney, if he would like to see his daughter become president again or go back into the House in 2 years, he needs to really work with George W. Bush and be part of this exit strategy for Iraq and address conflict resolution and unification, because that's pretty much what we're facing now between the Republican and the Democratic Party. Our past sets us in a particular place. It puts us somewhere along a vertical continuum. If you're, let's say you have a father, a mother, and a child, okay? The father in a traditional family, I'm saying, the father is somebody who pegs the family at a particular level. He's a good catch. Isn't that kind of like the way you'd like to see a good catch? You don't want to have a relationship with somebody necessarily who's got is all messed up and having problems and everything. A good catch is somebody who's stable, maybe. Now I'm generalizing this, but that pegs you at a certain level. And what is one person's good catch isn't necessarily another person's good catch. So I'm generalizing the idea that's the principles that you stand on. And that's basically what you're looking at with, let's say, a Christian idea of a classic Christian family or any kind of religious type family is the idea that the principles, the husband or the father is the principles. But it isn't necessarily that he's going to go and he's going to keep people under his thumb and force them into doing that, because the mother then decides, is there at that level, and then decides whether it's going, principles power, the present is the power level, and that person, the mother, decides whether the family's going to go up, straight ahead, or down. Is she going to solve the problems? Is she going to help if the father's working? Is she going to get revenge on him because she thinks he's having an affair? Or is she going to work with him as a husband and wife team, and they're going to work together to build a better foundation for everyone? And then the future is the children, and what foundation are they going to have? If the mother and father go different directions in a divorce, the children are sometimes left on a bridge between two parents. The parents are going different directions, and the children have no foundation anymore. That's one of our project ideas in the Getting Out of the Abyss classes, is to help the children get off the bridge when the parents are divorced. So I'll talk about the Getting Out of the Abyss classes when we get closer to bringing in the next part of the people in the organization. So Liz Cheney, if she wants to run for House in 2 years, if the MAGA movement is destroyed by falling off a cliff when they realize that they're not really solving problems, and if people in the higher ranks are indicted for crimes that they've committed or whatever, and it becomes apparent that Donald Trump really had a lot of failed policies, basically, and left the United States in worse shape than it was when he got into office, because he wasn't standing on those very high principles. Okay, when we go forward, Liz Cheney and her father, if they work together to address this issue, just like Jeb Bush and his brother, if they support the idea of the international government, that's a very dangerous place at this point to be supporting something that is not supportable. But if they want to resolve the past and then come into the future where they have their power, then they're going to have to address these issues from the past that cause them problems. Now, Donald Trump would agree with this whole idea, because before he became president, he paid, according to the investigations and such, he paid Michael Cohen to go pay off Stormy Daniels. He wanted that out of the way before he moved forward and into the presidency, and he dragged it with him, and it caused problems. So you could say that George Bush, if the Bush family supports the idea of addressing the legality of the Iraq War and stops the ripples of effect that are going out, and understanding that it was failed policy, why it is failed policy, that the policy of presumption of innocence, you cannot defend yourself from prejudice and ulterior motives. It takes somebody else to defend you to do that. And sometimes it's the court, and sometimes it's a nonprofit organization. So my organization is working to defend Saddam Hussein just the same way that in our American history, it was John Adams who stood up to defend the British after the Boston Massacre. So we're going to say that if somebody is innocent until proven guilty, basically somebody has this, if there's a character defamation campaign, that's a form of genocide, an individual form of genocide. It's a form of revenge. So we're now looking at this body of knowledge. And the contingency, you could say, for this plan, it appears, is that Dick Cheney and George W. Bush need to address this idea, and probably Tony Blair too, because of Brexit and because of what's happening in England, and as opposed to the United Kingdom. I'm using England because because that culture basically is different from the other countries. I'm separating that out because of England, and also talking about it being a dangerous thing to do. Vladimir Putin threatened to nuke England, and so we're looking at this idea of the threat associated with this. So if those two families would like to gain their power back, it's like they went along thinking that presumption of innocence, or that it was okay, preemptive strikes were a good policy for the United States. When they attacked an innocent person, they collapsed their power base, and now to rise up out of it, they have to address this issue. And if there was the flip-flop effect with that light source invention, the revolving gyroscope, the top, the third time around it went more extreme. So the first time was the Iraq War, and then the second with George W. Bush. The second time around it was Obama, and he wasn't able to introduce, he knew about the plan for world peace, but he wasn't able to make it happen because the Republicans didn't like it, and that's when they brought in Donald Trump, and the MAGA movement started. The idea that they were going to get to stop the creation of the international government that guarantees to everybody our unalienable rights. Okay, so nobody's in agreement with anybody taking over the world and destroying taking away their unalienable rights. Okay, so in the long run, the MAGA movement cannot survive. It based on revenge, it cannot survive. If Donald Trump is saying he's getting revenge on Obama and the Clintons and the Bidens, revenge is not a tool for creating the life you want. It functions on a very, very low level. It pegs our nation on a very low level. Okay, so where we were before was standing up to defend the underdogs and whatever, and democratizing the world. To democratize the world, we have to support, we can't go in and force a nation to change. What we have to do is create this layer over the top of what already exists, and then allow the idea to trickle through their culture, because they're already functioning on that way on the international level. And then cultural change can happen from within the country rather than from without. Okay, so that's how it has to go. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about today. Liz Cheney, if she is standing on the principles of stopping Donald Trump, well, to be honest, her father and George W. Bush did that with Iraq, did the hostile takeover and collapse the U.S. power base that set the stage for Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, and Obama not being able to stand up and defend himself from the Republicans who were trying to control an issue. So then now Joe Biden has gone in and he's trying to figure out how to work with his history in the Senate. So he's now the next president. Donald Trump was the last president of the United States of the old cycle, and now Joe Biden is the first president. But we now have to address the issue. We're coming into the new. We have to address the issue of failed policies, and then get the United States on track to be part of the global renaissance. Donald Trump's policies of I'm going to make you rich. The trickle-down idea doesn't work. We're not in any better shape than we were before, and blaming Joe Biden for it isn't going to help. Okay, so that's all I'd like to say. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe. I'd like to thank you for stopping by, and I'd like you to share it mostly because this information is important for the world. So for all of the light bearers who are watchdogs of the organization, what do you think about, I'd like you to open a debate. What do you think about the idea of George Bush and doing the same thing that Donald Trump did, but on a smaller scale, except he started a global genocide, if that could be considered a small scale? What do you think about the idea of, do you think Liz Cheney and Jeb Bush could actually be in the primaries running for president? How can they become president? Can they become president by supporting the idea of the creation of the international government that guarantees to everybody a right to create our life without interference? Okay, thank you.